breakdown. Medicurius oversight.
Hello there. The name is Phantom Knights. Ragged gloves, as you can see there, with my identification there. And we're going to talk about, in this video, a breakdown of things that are yet to come. With that being said, let's get on with the rest of this video. Chapter 1.
Okay, before we talk about Medicurius, let's talk about where we are in Yu-Gi-Oh at the moment and the oversight I'm talking about. But before we talk about that, let's see the cards in front of us, which are only available in the OCG, which is Baron de Fleur and Borrowed Savage Dragon. These cards have been banned in TCG, I think, for the last 4 years now. So, I think 3 years, 2023, 2022, around there. And when you notice with these cards is that they are what I like to call omni negates, right?
Facts.
These are negates that have no cost when they're used, and they can just negate anything. Hence the word omni. They can negate a monster, spell, or trap effect, which makes them really quite ridiculous. They have no cost to getting paid, especially when we look at Baron de Fleur. It does a lot of things, as you can see here. It negates a card, it pops a card, and it can, in the standby phase, revive a monster from the graveyard by returning itself back into the extra deck. Absolutely ridiculous, absolutely absurd.
That's too strong.
You look at Borrowed Savage Dragon, it gets a counter on summon for the link monsters in the graveyard. It can negate it gates half attack equal to the link monsters, that it's linked to, etc. We're seeing all manners of absurd and ridiculous things on there, right? So essentially, these being banned in the TCG means that, as I said before in the previous video, we're definitely in a good place. And I will get to why the oversight will come with Medius and how I think as a community we got too excited. I think I also got too excited. Let's move on anyway.
Chapter 2.
So let's go back again and look at these the current negates that we have in TCG and make it a bit more clear. I think I talked about before how in the previous video we have type negates, but I think seeing them in front of you is equally just as important. We have K917 Ripper, Azamina Ilia Sylvia, and Fiendsmith Desiree. These are cards that are not easy to make. They are not generic. As you can see here, K9 Ripper is not an omni negate. It only negates monsters. Azamina Sylvia, while is an omni negate, you can only make it by fusing an illusion and a light spellcaster monster. Remember, illusion is a new type that's only been in the game for a couple of years now, so there's not a lot of illusions in the game, which means it's not something that can be splashed around in every deck, since every deck cannot have illusions in it. And when it comes to Fiendsmith Desiree, again, this involves a huge Fiendsmith package, right? So this means that while this is an omni negate like Azamina Sylvia, again, this requires a lot of investment, a lot of things for it to work and for it to gain that effect. Okay, so now we're going to go to the oversight that I'm talking about and why I feel what I said before in the previous video will still apply. To Yu-Gi-Oh! And TCG. Let's move on and do that.
Chapter 3.
Okay, so look at the screen and we can see where the oversight is coming. So let's read the Ars Magnus Cretinius continuous spell, right? So let's read it. This card is always treated as an Archmage, Doom Z, and Elf Node card. You can activate the effects of monsters you control with Ars Magna in their original names. That's quick effects. While you control a Power Patron Link monster. Once, While face up on the field, you can add one Medius or Ars Magna monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect of Ars Magna Cretinius once per turn.
Wait a minute. That can't be right.
I know, Ariel. That's an oversight. Does it not give Power Patron links quick effects? Hold on, let me just reread that. This Ars Magna continuous spell real quick. You can activate the effects of monsters you control with Ars Magna in their original names as quick effects, while you control a Power Patron link monster.
I find this rather odd.
Wait, what? You serious? Oh, that's a huge oversight. Now let's read the link monster, which is Medicurius, the Power Patron of Illusions. First of all, this is a Power Patron. And as we've read very clearly on the continuous spell of Ars Magna Citrinitas, that this link, while generic, does not gain a quick effect. The continuous spell gives Ars Magna monsters quick effects, but not Power Patron link monsters. Reading. As players, we failed to read this card. Oh dearie me. Anyways, so let's read this effect with this context in mind and fully understand Medicurius, the Power Patron of Illusions, what it does. So apart from having a generic summoning condition, which is 2 monsters including Fusion, Synchro, XYZ, or Link monster, gain its effects based on the number of monsters it points to. 1. Once per turn, you can negate the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent controls. Your opponent currently controls. Also, until the end of this turn, their attacks become halved. So when we look at this card, this means, first of all, this has changed this card somewhat. Remember, the Ars Magna continuous spell we believed would give this card, would give Medicurius a quick effect, turning it to be a quick effect. But unfortunately, it does not. All it does is make the Ars Magna monsters quick effects, but not the Power Patron link. This is significant, as this means that this Medicurius Power Patron link monster is not as crazy and is not as powerful as once believed. As going first, as leaving this as an endboard piece, does absolutely nothing. That first effect of being able to negate the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent currently controls only applies on your turn and cannot be made into a quick effect. And if we see this when it points to 2 monsters unaffected by your opponent's activated effects, frankly, that's the only effect it has. So this turns this card into a towers. That's good, I guess, so it can't be touched by your opponent's activated effects. So we have a 3,000 towers that just sits there and does nothing. We can't use it. Again, it has no quick effects or negation on your opponent's turn. You can only use it to break your opponent's board on your going second. And what makes it even worse, it says there at the beginning, it only affects monsters they currently control. So this negate also does not apply to cards in the hand or graveyard. So any hand effects can get rid of this. Any whatever effects can get rid of this. While it's true that activated effects, so Ghost Strike might get rid of it. But again, this is just a beat stick with not really a lot of a flavor here. Forbidden Droplet, or even like any negate card, any spell that negates deals with this pretty easily. And finally, when we see that third effect, which is once per opponent's turn, quick effect, you can banish this card and also banish all cards your opponent controls. It needs to point to three monsters. Yeah, that effect is pretty strong. Do you know what else is pretty strong? We've been having similar cards like this in Yu-Gi-Oh! Whether it's Topologic Zeroboros, Topologic Trisbana, or the other Topologic monster that's been out that does the same thing. Link monsters that just banish all cards your opponent controls doesn't mean anything in Yu-Gi-Oh! And hasn't done anything. Sure, they've been competitive, and turning that to be a quick effect might be revolutionary, but it's not something that's really changed. And one thing that's very important is that that is the only quick effect on this card. The negation aspects of this card do not do not apply. Remember, it does not get quick effects if the Ars Magna Citrinitas is on the field. It only gives Ars Magna monsters quick effects, not Power Patron Link monsters, as we have read quite clearly here. So, yeah, there's a severe problem here. And here is the great oversight. The oversight is that Medicurius, the Power Patron of Illusions, is a mediocre link at best. I think as a community, we got too excited. We did not read this card clearly. We did not read the continuous spell clearly, and we got too excited and thought that this link is actually a broken card. Now, with context in mind, this card isn't as crazy as one would first believe, as it only applies if you're going second. So the fact that, again, you don't get these negate effects, you only get them on your turn, that is not a quick effect. While being unaffected by, activated monster effects is your opponent's activated effects is really quite strong, so that applies to monsters, spells, and traps, which is quite crazy. So the only way to do so is to, how do we say, tribute it. But here's the problem, right? The issue with this card, it just means it's just an unbeatable normal monster, right? It's not really doing anything. It's just a disruption. And being able to banish all cards your opponent controls, sure, again, is powerful, and sure is strong when you think about it in isolation. But when you think about where we are in TCG, just banishing all cards your opponent controls as a quick effect is not that crazy and is not that broken, really. Remember, you can't mix this card with other cards. And then many would say, and I thought about it, maybe this could be really good in the future Atlantean cards. Sure, it's a water. Sure, it can maybe do something there, maybe do some work, do some heavy lifting. But part of the issue with Medicurius, as I think you're beginning to realize, is it doesn't add anything to the table. This isn't a good end board piece, as I've certainly realized, and I think players will realize soon. This isn't a good going second piece, as there's better cards we can be using to go second. And even if you want to be using this card to go for a game, you have to banish the Ars Magna monsters, and those have to be banished from your hand to give this card that effect. There's a lot of restrictions, a lot of, how can we put it, nonsense, right? To get this card to be able to have 9,000 attack, can't be destroyed by backlog card effects, and being able to attack 3 times on monsters, right? Not on just attacking. So again, this is a huge limitation here when you think about it outside of context and when you really add what's going on here. So no, overall, I think this card isn't as good as initially conceived, and I think this oversight is something we need to think about and maybe not get too excited in the future about cards when we're revealed. We really need to be reading cards in the future. Well, let's head on to the conclusion.
Final chapter.
So overall, all I want to say is that when it comes to Medicurius, the Power Patron of Illusions, is that in Yu-Gi-Oh, I think there are things that are not that crazy, and I think reading cards carefully and not getting too excited definitely can give us context, and having context for a card is extremely important. While the medius card in the really doesn't do anything, I think it's a good going second card. But is it a broken card? Absolutely not. When we add context into the mix, and remember that this is a card that is a negate card, that has a lot of restrictions on it, as you can only use this effect on your turn, the negate effect, on your turn, right? You can't use it on your opponent's turn. That is not a quick effect. There's no way to make Power Patrons Link Monsters quick effects, as the Ars Magna continuous spell only makes Ars Magna monsters quick effects, and that's only the case if you control a Power Patron Link monster. So again, it's the Ars Magnas only get the condition to be quick effects if you control a Power Patron Link monster. So there's a restriction on top of a restriction, right? So the Ars Magna cards are what are getting quick effects. And the more I look at this card, the more I look at everything, these is not as crazy as one would first believe. As when we look at the Ars Magna monsters, remember to give their effects to the Power Patron Link monsters. While we have three monsters, right? Ars Magna monsters. One of them, when it's banished from hand, triples the attack, of all Power Patron Link monsters. The second one allows all Power Patron Link monsters to attack 3 times in the battle phase towards monsters. And then the other gives, again, being banished from the hand, allows the Power Patron Link monsters in the battle phase, right, not in any other phase, to not being able to be destroyed by battle or card effects, right? So these in isolation don't mean much. And remember, the Ars Magna cards are only giving the Power Patron monsters abilities, and they have to be banished from the hand. So if the Ars Magna cards are in the graveyard or on the field, then these effects don't apply, as they have to be banished from the hand. And when cards are not flexible, there's one thing you need to realize. When cards aren't flexible, when they can't activate their effects in multiple of ways, when they have to activate their effects in a certain way to give a card a boost, then that isn't good in Yu-Gi-Oh! And that is equivalent to calling a card trash or garbage, right? It's absolutely garbage. So that's all I've got to say about the situation. Tune in next time as I talk about more things on this channel. Hope to see you soon.
We come to the end of this video. So, as I like to say, you are one step closer to becoming a Yu-Gi-Oh! Master. My fate, right, is in your hands.